By 1914, the great polar prizes had been claimed. Roald Amundsen had reached the South Pole 3 years earlier. Robert Peary declared the Arctic conquered. Ernest Shackleton, who had turned back just 97 miles from the pole in 1909 to save his men, reframed the pursuit. He proposed crossing the entire Antarctic continent, 1,800 miles on foot from the Weddell Sea to the Ross Sea. His newspaper advertisement was blunt. Hazardous journey, low wages, safe return, doubtful. Thousands applied. In August 1914, the Endurance departed England carrying 28 men toward a traverse that existed only on maps. That same month, Europe descended into war. The expedition became anachronistic the moment it began, a contest from an age that had just ended. Far to the south, the Weddell Sea would decide what became of it. On January 18, 1915, less than 100 miles from Vosel Bay, the Endurance stopped moving. Pack ice closed around the hull, locking the ship in place just 1 day from its intended landing site on the Antarctic coast. The crew waited for spring, confident the ice would release them. It did not. The ship drifted northwest with the frozen Weddell Sea, a prisoner of the current. Shackleton quietly abandoned the transcontinental crossing. The new mission was survival and safe return. For 10 months, the Endurance drifted in silence. No radio, no rescue. And then, the ice began to move, grinding against the wooden hull with irresistible force. The pack ice had closed around the Endurance with a pressure no wooden hull was built to survive. The ship's timbers splintered as pressure ridges buckled the deck and flooded the interior. Shackleton ordered evacuation. The crew hauled 3 lifeboats, tents, and what food they could carry onto the ice, establishing a camp they named Ocean Camp on a drifting floe. Photographer Frank Hurley smashed through submerged ice to retrieve glass photographic plates, preserving the visual record of what was being lost. On November 21, 1915, the Endurance disappeared beneath the surface. The symbol of return was gone. What remained was ice, unstable, drifting, and fragmenting beneath them, and months of exposure on a surface that would not hold forever. From the Antarctic summer into early 1916, Shackleton's 28 men lived on a drifting ice floe in the Weddell Sea, with no ship and no rescue coming. They hauled 3 lifeboats and tents across the ice, moving north with the currents. Food was rationed carefully. The men hunted seals and penguins, their only reliable source of meat. For over 5 months, the ice carried them slowly toward open water. But the floe beneath them constantly shifted and cracked. By April, it had shrunk and fragmented so severely that remaining on it meant certain death. Shackleton recognized the moment. Waiting had become more dangerous than moving. He ordered the crew into the 3 lifeboats, wooden vessels never designed for polar seas. On April 9, 1916, they launched into freezing water, soaked and frostbitten, rowing toward the nearest land they could hope to reach. 6 days later, Ernest Shackleton and his 27 men stepped onto Elephant Island, the first solid ground beneath their feet in 497 days. The island was a desolate ridge of rock and ice in the South Shetlands, lashed by wind and waves. They had survived the open sea in 3 lifeboats, but the island offered nothing. No shelter, no possibility of rescue. It sat over 550 miles from the nearest inhabited land, invisible to the shipping lanes that crossed the Southern Ocean. Shackleton understood immediately. To stay was to wait for death. He selected 5 men and prepared the largest lifeboat, the James Caird, for modification. The crew would split. 22 would remain under makeshift boat shelters on the beach, while 6 would attempt a crossing to South Georgia, navigating by sextant through the worst seas on Earth.
Since the age of sail, men have steered by the heavens. A sextant measures the angle between sun or star and the horizon. And from that single reading, a skilled navigator may fix his position upon the open sea. But precision is everything. 1 degree of error across 800 miles places a vessel dozens of miles from her mark. Where storms rage without pause and skies remain sealed for days, even that single precious sighting may never come.
On April 24th, 1916, Shackleton and 5 companions pushed the James Caird, a 22-foot lifeboat fitted with canvas decking and ballast stones, into the Southern Ocean. 800 miles of open water lay between Elephant Island and South Georgia. Frank Worsley navigated by sextant, catching the sun only 4 times during the crossing. Waves rose to 60 feet. Ice formed constantly on the canvas deck, threatening to capsize them with its weight. "17 days later, cliffs appeared through the spray. They had reached South Georgia. But storms and exhaustion made it impossible to sail around to the northern coast. The whaling stations lay 29 miles north, across mountains and glaciers no one had ever crossed. Shackleton, Tom Crean, and Frank Worsley set out on foot, carrying a length of rope and a carpenter's adze for an ice axe. 3 men, too weak to travel, remained by the boat. The interior of South Georgia rises over 9,000 feet, cut by crevasses and uncharted peaks. The 3 men chose speed over caution, climbing and descending through ice and darkness for 36 hours without rest. At last, the lights of Stromness whaling station appeared below them. Shackleton's own ordeal was nearly over, but 22 men still waited for rescue. In August 1916, Ernest Shackleton launched his final rescue attempt from Chile. Earlier efforts, from the Falklands, Uruguay, and Chile, had been turned back by pack ice before he could even sight Elephant Island. The men waiting there had survived 4 months with no word, no certainty that Shackleton had survived the boat journey or would return. Aboard the Chilean vessel Yelcho, Shackleton finally broke through. All 22 men were alive. The ship loaded them and departed before the weather could shift or the ice return. What had begun as an imperial race for glory ended as something quieter, a promise kept. All 28 members of the Endurance expedition survived, a record unmatched in Antarctic exploration. But they returned to a world transformed, where nations were consumed by war and stories of ice seemed like relics from another age. He had lost his ship, his crossing, and his place in history. He served briefly in the war effort before poor health forced him to step back, then struggled financially for years. In 1922, on South Georgia, leading the Quest expedition, he died of a heart attack at 47. But Frank Hurley's photographs preserved what words could not capture: ice, endurance, and 28 men brought home against impossible odds. The expedition had failed every geographical objective. Yet in the decades that followed, it became something else entirely. A case study, a standard. Leadership, it turned out, could be measured not by what you conquer, but by who you bring home.